Thanks for staying with us. The most disturbing aspect of the INEC bill that has caused a lot of worries is the reported doctoring of the document to eliminate the electronic transmission of results. Now, it became a huge issue because of the tradition of election rigging in Nigeria. I mean, votes would be counted and declared openly in polling units in front of voters who would go home happy. Then subsequently, the numbers would be changed during collation, and the outcome would be decided by the riggers and not the voters. So that was why the idea of sending the results directly to INEC headquarters and to the public from the polling units arose as a way of bypassing riggers. So can this automation work? And if so, how can it run smoothly? That's the question for tonight. So quickly, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. I'll bring in Dovoe in a minute or two. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on this. I didn't vote in 2019. I voted in 2015. 2019, after the voting, the elections in 2015, my voter's card got missing. And, you know, the process of trying to get it back, go and get police report and all of that, I think it was just cumbersome for me. You know, I tried it. I've resumed it now, but I don't know where we are at the process. But I've done the affidavit and all of that. You know, but my point is, I mean, for me, we didn't have all those kind of issues in Magodo. Because it was the numbers that we counted in 2015, every single thing, when they eventually reported it in the whatever, the headquarters or whatever it is that they do, it was the exact figures. So I am just thinking in my head, is it possible that there are certain areas that this rigging can happen? Because, you know, it seems like maybe it's all those crowded places, maybe like Mushin, all those bigger Alimosho, all those bigger local government areas that things like this can happen. Because every figure that was collated, there was a representative of each of the parties. They were taking their own figures, and it was a very smooth, nothing like quarrel or fight and you know, snatching of boxes. But let me hear your thoughts. I
didn't vote in 2019 based on the same problem you had, because I had to move location and I was no longer you know, available in where I voted at in 2015.
Yeah.
So we didn't have that problem as well in 2015, but at the time, in quote, APC was popular in Lagos. Right now, I wouldn't say they're the most popular party because of what is currently happening in Nigeria. So we also have the context of which individuals, I have a friend who actually was contesting for governorship or gubernatorial election in Benue State at the time, and at the time he had won his local government, but the moment they took the ballot boxes away from where he was to another location, and they came back with the numbers being just 2 that voted for him in that same location after winning, you know. And you see, that still comes to mind, that the electoral power or the electorate was disenfranchised. So at the end of the day, you don't have that zeal to actually go out there, because at the end of the day, it's like a vote won't count.
Norma,
so
how are you?
I wish it will have have something that will be automated, that it will be transparent enough for everyone to see.
Yeah.
Yes.
It seemingly was organized where I was on the mainland. You know, the processes, the counting, they had representatives from most of the parties, and the numbers were collated, so it seemed organized. But I would agree with you, in some of the densely populated areas, that there's more potential to have more people voting, that some of those numbers were doctored, just because, of course, it's populated.
Exactly.
Those are where the numbers are. So definitely, those are the target areas.
Okay, so let me bring in Dovoe Okorie. He needs no introduction. You can listen to him every morning on Classic FM. If you wait, Dovoe, why are you doing that to me? You're making me sound like I just said something that was not correct. on Monday mornings, which of them? You know, but he's a friend of the house. He's been on the show before, and he's a public affairs analyst, and he's joining live in studio. Thank you so much, Dovoe, for coming.
Thank you.
So you heard a lot of banter on these electoral reforms and the amendment bill and all of that. I listened to you, first of all, on Monday, and I said, aha, I found the culprit. The culprit I'm going to hijack to the
elucidate for us.
I'm going to hijack into the studio, you know, but thank you so much for joining us this year. I know that you are supposed to be in the holiday mood, but
yes,
you
I
know,
should be chilling. And
yeah. But my sister, West say, you know, my sister released you. All right, so Dovoe, tell us, this amendment bill, first of all, what exactly is the issue? Because everybody's just harping on, what's it called, the electronic transfer of numbers. Is that the only issue, the main issue, or there's more to that?
Well, there is more to it, and I think we'll just go through the story in the little time that we have so that people understand. Because it's the massive, humongous ignorance and illiteracy about the electoral process and on the larger scale governance that actually produces the results that all of you saw. So we'll not use big words, we'll tell it like it is. The rigging, the cheating, the corruption, the normal higgy-haga that comes with elections is because people know very little about this process.
So the one that we are talking about, which is the real-time transfer of electronic results. You know, tell us about that. Okay,
and let me just build a little thing around that. Now, we're talking about electoral reform. The act was passed in 2010, and since then, as with every bill or act, it goes through reforms. It's not perfect. So various administrations have attempted to reform it in different ways. Bills are passed via INEC or via the sponsor in the House or the Senate to be able to improve on it. Now, what we've had is currently what has been the issue is the major highlights, because there are other issues involved in the Electoral Reform Act, had to do with, and I'll just read a few of them, the electronic optimization, which is the application of technology. That's actually what is happening. Not that they changed anything, they're simply saying if we apply technology, maybe we'll be more efficient, we'll be more effective. Now, that includes the issues of the introduction of the accreditation of voters, which was what they introduced the last time. Yeah, in 2015 we were accredited. Yes, with the card readers. Remember before they used to write it on a list and they'll check. That was prone to all forms of fraud, but with the electronic verification using the PVC, which has your biometrics, at least you could minimize that to some level. 2, electronic voting, which is how you see it abroad with some machines that you just push buttons, and then instead of printing all that and spending all the money, you do it very quickly. 2, the one that caused the controversy, the electronic transmission of results, which is basically from the polling center to the collation center. Just like you send a text message, it just moves like that. And that they've done actually already. You also have the issue of diaspora voting. Remember, Nigerians are traveling people. We have parents, brothers, sisters all abroad who wish
want to be part of the process.
Like in other countries, they could be part of it. That was also part of it. Then you also have the issue of the electoral offenses. So many people have been committing crimes during these elections, and INEC has not been able to prosecute them. So they did pass a bill on the introduction of the Electoral Offenses Commission. So while INEC delivers the election, another group of people would be fighting those who, who fall short of the rules and laws. 2, you also had the introduction of the spending limit for political parties. Like at the presidential level, it used to be about 5 billion. I think they raised it to about 15 billion now. Now, so are they raising that figure, or they're bringing down that figure? They're raising it due to inflation, due to, we all know that 5 billion is not enough officially to be able to get all to run an election. Now, this bill or this reform had been rejected 3 times by President Buhari in his administration. In the first tenure, he rejected it in the 8th Assembly. That was the Sarki-led assembly. The only bit that they were able to push was the PVC and then the use of the card reader. And then also the issue of date fixing, whereby was INEC given the capacity to either have the gubernatorial and presidential first before the assembly. You know, that was a big issue
yes,
then.
It was a
because
big issue.
many people did not come out until they saw whoever was coming out for the president.
Yeah.
Now, and that had a lot of political influence as to where money would go and to who was coming out. President Buhari rejected again on the issue of drafting. He said, oh, there are a few mistakes here and there, and they need to get it together. And then finally, when he should have done it before the last election, he said it's a little too close to the election date.
So you would wait after.
There'd be too much uncertainty. So that was where INEC was not able to. But this time round, I mean, clearly, we had like 4 years, but he didn't give it to us in those 4 years. So we're expecting now that there should be no reason why he shouldn't pass it. However, who would have been surprised that the motley crew of people who represent you and me, as the legislature, decided to pull a jackrabbit on Nigerians? As they say, government magic. Really, I mean, they say police is your friend. The legislature should be your friend because he represents you. But what did they do? They went there and they did something else. And the big challenge was what you raised in the electronic transmission. There was an outright no to the e-voting, okay, so we've forgotten about that. But where we should have had a concession was e-voting, electronic transmission,
of the data.
Which introduces efficiency, which introduces
transparency.
Yes, transparency. And what's transparent about it? Because in between the time that you vote and you paste it on the polling station, between that time and when they push it to the collation center, all the magic takes place. And that's what happened to your dear friend. Right? By the time he came back, at the collation center, it was announced that he only had 2 votes.
Yes.
That takes place all the time. And that's what ends up a lot of people at the tribunal in terms of what happened to me. I was cheated on, etc. and co. Now,
with e-transfer,
what really happened? The section that was controversial was section 52, which said that the commission that's the INEC, will transmit electronic results to the collation center by electronic means when and where applicable. That was what the reform said. But
only when applicable.
The Deputy Senate Whip now introduced the slight change, okay? And we know in English words mean everything.
They're very legal.
He said the commission,
political English,
the commission may consider electronic transmission provided network coverage is adjudged adequate and secure by NCC, and you'd have thought that was the end of it, and approved by the National Assembly.
Wow.
So 2 roadblocks just before INEC can simply say they have transmitted results. So if any one of these says no, like then NCC already came out and said in some locations you don't have coverage, you're not going to have it. If the National Assembly, even if INEC says there's coverage, the National Assembly says, well, I don't feel there was, you're still not going to have it.
So how does this affect those in diaspora?
No, it's not
even
aside from those of us in the local space.
No, diaspora is a completely different conversation.
This affects directly the local environment, really.
Yes, this is the controversial issue. Like I said, I painted the story so that people would see all that it
In fact, the question should have been instituted. The question should have been, how does it affect the people in the villages, for instance? Because, I mean, that is the only place they can actually beat their chest to say, okay, maybe. But even in the villages, they are like 2G networks. No, right?
You know, I don't even want to waste time on the issue of electronic voting, because we all know that this is a charade. It's called, you're chasing a red herring, okay?
Yes.
We're beating around the bush, where everything is being done just to prove to you that you're not going to have transparent and accountable elections. You must note the objective in mind and what is going on. Now, how did they vote? This was the Senate. 52 came out and said, no, we don't want. 28 were against it. And then 28 were conveniently absent. Now, that was 108 senators. Now, you see how they turn. Now, this is a proposal at this point. Nigerians do not have any hope unless the president turns it back. Now, INEC still came out after this and was saying that they've proven it, they've done it themselves, it works. You don't even need INEC to prove it to you. If you have a cousin in Borno State, please send him 500 naira and see if he doesn't get it.
I think that's the argument that
that's electronic voting. Sorry, that's electronic transmission. Secondly, the card reader does not work on water. Neither does it work miraculously. It's electronic. And it worked for Nigerians in the last election. So what are they talking about? This is what we call government magic. The more you see,
the more you look, the
more you look, the less you see, the less you understand what is really going on here.
You know, I said this thing earlier.
So Nigerians really need to be careful about what really happened. Now, you see, what is really going on here?
How do we hold them accountable with all this government magic?
We will get there. However, you see, all this basketball playing is all in a bid for 2023. And as you know, elections is never about logic. It's never about sentiment or morality. Politics is about numbers and consensus. I will say this 4 times during this session. Politics is about numbers and consensus. Every day we fight religion. Every day we fight tribe, ethnicity, or you have more money than me. But you see, when it comes down to the wire, they come together.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
This decision that they took, which was against transparency. You can see how they came together. Now, you see, the funny thing is that you can say that the opposition, because they took different positions. Some can interpret what happened by saying that it was ethnic, because you could see a difference between people from the north and people from the south. Some could say because the governors already had agreed that they were for electronic transmission. But what happened in the Senate was completely different. You can also say that they took a party position because the 52 who voted, it seemed as if APC already knew what they wanted. And then the PDP took an opposition. And you could say that PDP, well, as how they explain in political terms is that PDP simply did that because they were in opposition, that if they're in power, they would have done the same thing. And in their own time, they did worse. So what are they talking about now? And that is a big issue with our kind of politics. Thirdly, you could say, was it actually political expediency or was it in national interest? It should be in national interest.
But it didn't show that.
We are more than them. You have 109 senators and about 305 House representatives. That's maximum 600 people who should represent your interest and my interest. And they're doing something else. How is it that the few political class seem to always get their way and that we're not able to influence them to do our bidding? Now, why were they so interested in maintaining status quo? Because they all want to survive.
And they're all the same. At this point, it's no longer a PDP, APC, APGA, or whatever. At this point, they are all together in it. You know what, Devoe? Let's go and drink water. We'll be right back. Now, if you just tuned in, we're having an amazing chat with Dovoe Okorie on automating our electoral processes. One has been thrown out, which is electronic voting. That's not going to happen, right? So please let us hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp 081-803-84683. Electronic vote not going to happen. Verification, that one has happened. What's it called? So is the transfer now that we are deliberating on. So you can. And
the offences, how do we hold those?
A few have been passed, and you know, since they took that position, a lot of the National Assembly members have faced a lot of criticism for how they played out or the drama that ensued that we all watched, and they've come out to try and explain that they were not against it.
That's
actually, yes, you know, a lot of BS. But the truth is, be wary of how they voted. And I need you to understand political language so that you do not run off on the morality or the objectiveness of what happens as against when politics is being played.
Yes.
Okay? When you understand the political game, you will know the end from the beginning. Now, for example, simply speaking, how was Buhari able to win elections? He had a lot of millions of votes in his side. He more or less had a regional consensus.
For 2015 or 2019?
Yes, and he shook hands with the Southwest, and he won. Those are among the 3 major blocs within the country. That is how politics works. So the point here is, the legislature or those who you have voted in there, whether you did that by omission or commission, have not acted in your interests, how are you going to deal with it? And this is where the real discussion comes. My surprise is that there's no outrage. Nobody's making noise. We're not on the streets protesting. Sometimes we die for the wrong reasons. We make noise for the wrong reasons. We should be protesting over this matter. Because all this while, if you remember when they were doing part of the electoral reform, the last one was not too young to run. And Buhari eventually said, I will sign it, but after I come in. Yes. So now, all this is coming up again. Now, people have been clamoring for some level of transparency, and we're not going to get that. Simply because if Buhari does sign to this, then it's going to be until another person throws it up again, and probably in another 4 years.
And it might be 8 years. That one will say, let me finish my own 8 years.
Yes.
Let me take a comment. Electronic transmission is possible everywhere. In this age of cheap encrypted satellite communications, where calls can be made in the middle of Sahara on a monthly lease plan of less than $100, our apologists for non-transmission are being clever by half. Turaya, Imarsat and Iridium satellite communication have been with us for over 30 years. Identify the locations without 3G, terrestrial signal, and deploy SATCOMs. They are even more encrypted. So, I mean, it's not for lack of... No, you have a...
Yes, I do have a comment by Tayo here. He says, hello, people. I think we've been too laid back about the future of our country for too long. The longer this continues, the bolder our politicians become. Exactly. They know that we will not sustain our demand for better governance, and that leaves us at their mercy. We need to be more determined and strategic, please. Yeah.
He's correct.
Vivian's question.
Correct.
So how are we going to be more strategic?
Yes.
And how are we going to
get the power back?
Our power back.
Democracy is government of the people, by the people, for the people. But what you have is government of the few, by the few, for the few. Now, the problem is that people, to get the power back, to get these people to respect us, to get these people to do our bidding, you have to first know how governance works. Solution one. Knowledge. You have to know that ignorance. You have to know. It's not by prayer. It's not by shouting, screaming, or staying inside watching TV on Waze and saying, "Tell them, tell them." No, you have to understand how governance works.
How do they understand?
You see, the funny thing is that a lot of the politicians that we abuse, like there's one man from the Southwest that helped APC win the last election. People abuse him a lot, but you see, right now he's one of the only people doing the work. And because he's doing the work, when he now comes out and things work in his favor, you will ask again, how did he get there? In your front, he was doing the work. And like I said, politics is a game of numbers and consensus. Numbers meaning your population, your people. Now, do you see why they fight over local governments? Why they fight over not doing our election? I mean, sorry, not doing our population. Sorry, not population. Census. Because the last time some magic fingers came out in the output, and nobody wants that changed anymore because it works in the interest of a few. Now, get your numbers. Your numbers can come from any angle. And why I say this is the next step is consensus. Consensus means if I don't have the numbers, 2 is better than 1. If we take a vote here and I can talk to you and you, then that means she's going to lose, no matter how much noise that she makes.
Isn't that lobbying?
That's lobbying, and that is required. So that's why you now hear some people from the north say that, well, even though you prefer, or some people say that it should come from the southeast, you cannot force it. You cannot, how do I say, just bolster into the places.
The candidates should have some level of consensus across Nigeria.
Of course.
That's why someone like President Buhari actually even came in the first place.
It's part of the INEC criteria to winning. You have to have 25% in each of the regions. Okay? Now, I'm answering your question. Remember, numbers and consensus. Now, the consensus has to do with participation. And that is where we, the followers, fail. Because we only wake up at the end of 4 years. instead of knowing who I'm voting for, we start asking who is coming out. Is it this one? And most likely you forget because you didn't know, you were not part of the process. You only vote for the person that maybe you heard more or etc., who you're more familiar with. Remember the time of the presidential elections. After the presidential elections, and usually the last two people are usually popular, people go to bed. So in the next election, which is usually a week or two away, that's the National Assembly election.
No, but you just go
you just thumbprint,
yes, on parties.
Am I doing APC or PDP or YPP,
Exactly.
etc.?
Yes.
You don't even know who you're voting
for.
And the worst part is the people who should hold our executives to account are the legislator. And that's the election that we all vote in without our minds. Many people don't even show up that day. You have, I mean, if you had like 30% showing up for the presidential election, you have like 5% showing up for the assembly elections, both at federal and at state level. When last did you hear people pounce or say anything about the Lagos State Assembly?
Close to nothing.
So they're cruising through their 4 years simply because the electorate have gone to sleep.
Do you think
this is where the problem lies?
Do you think we should hold INEC responsible for this?
INEC is not responsible. INEC is just a facilitator. They've given you the opportunity, they've given you the mechanism to vote in who you want. But if you go to sleep and you don't do your bit, okay, you're going to have the same result over and over.
But Dovoe, tell me something. Right, because I was really hoping that we'll have a conversation on automating, and if this is the case, it means that we can't see a future where, you know, are you trying to tell me that in the near future we'll still be right where we are today, you know, talking about this election?
Yes.
If nothing is done.
It's, you know why? Because you keep doing the same thing.
Yeah.
The politicians thrive on your ignorance. They thrive on your non-participation. They love it. Now, what happened in Lagos last time? Because of the small noise that came from a few, what do you call them? Gangsters, Agberos that came out in one certain zone, Okota. I don't know how that spread fear in the minds of Lagosians nationwide, I mean statewide, and people refuse to come out.
And there's an election coming up on Saturday.
Yes. How many people are part of that? How many people know?
Are aware.
Are they aware that they have a local government? Even though local government, yes, has been a bit bastardized, but how many people know the local government and what the local government takes care of? How many people know their state representatives, who the state representative for their own locality, right?
Wow.
Even though you see their posters, etc. We don't care because we believe as long as I'm taken care of, I can take care of myself, then, I mean, the rest can go.
So Dovoe, I mean, I hear you loud and clear. Now, we want results. Like, how are people to be enlightened about these electoral processes and reforms that can help them to... Because a lot of people don't know, sincerely. The average Nigerian is looking to just either work hard and survive than to start thinking or dealing with who is coming out for elections or not. But they do not know that those decisions have very grave implications, like what you're saying right now. So how do, I don't even know how to frame how do we begin to enlighten people whose responsibility?
Why are we not even voting against this thing now?
Whose responsibility is it to be able to do this?
There's a sense of ownership that is missing in Nigeria. You and me, and I mean, we form a bit of the demography. We need to study the demography a bit, and this is where the problem lies. If you notice, some people say Nigerians are weak. They're not. It depends on what is at stake.
Yes.
Whilst we kill ourselves, divide and rule is when you get people to fight themselves over nonsense, and then you sit there and you just keep extracting. Okay? Now, what do we fight over? Think about it. Right now, you're having agitations over tribal agitations. East, southwest, southeast. I want to go on my own. I want to be, etc. Is that really the problem?
No.
The truth is, yes, they have reasons. They have cause. No disputing what the claims that they've made. But is there a way around it? Of course there's a way. And that's why whenever the AG or the administration speaks and says work through your assembly, they're not actually pushing you aside. They're actually telling you the truth. If the last election, I think it was the first time that there was a big change in the National Assembly. Many people, I think about 60% of the assembly people left, and there were new people there. Now what happens is that those people who were there also realize that it's as if these electorates, they disappear, they go to sleep. Now, how do you hold them account? First of all, know them. First of all, the demands that you make of the president, go and make those same demands at your ward council. Yes. Let's start from the beginning of grassroots, growing of grassroots. This same Buhari traveled around to the 36 states in the last election. Did y'all forget that?
No.
He went round, he was talking. What happened? Another person who I give props to in how he won his elections, Fayemi.
Yes.
Sorry, not Fayemi. Fayoshe.
Yes.
Fayoshe went around all the local governments and constituencies in the Ekiti states, and he spoke in their language. The language they understand. Yes, he ate corn with them. Yes, he took bole and broke on the ground, because that's where the numbers lie. So you're expecting someone from heaven to come out and say, hey, I'm the next House of Rep member, I want you to vote for me. No. Because what will happen is when he comes out, they're going to tell him, we don't know you. Now, knowing is equal to, is the same thing as also relating with them. And sometimes when you relate, you'll also realize that your constituency, they need things, which is where justifiably the relationship of different means and extension, handshakes of fellowship starts. Okay? But what happens that when we go to sleep, when we do nothing, at the end of the day, what do people do? They come towards a few weeks before elections and say, I want recharge card, I want stomach infrastructure, I want all of this, and the politician simply makes a calculation of how much he needs to spend.
Meets that demand.
And that's it, and that's the end.
So somebody is saying APC is afraid because they know they come 2023, they will lose they will fail or something. This is not the conversation.
It will shock him.
No, this is not the conversation. We're even
because we're still based on party.
Do you understand?
Whether it's APC or PDP.
This is the biggest problem that I have with Nigerians. But you have a comment, you know, because we actually have run out of time.
My comment is from Lawman, Imo State, and he says, all those National Assembly members who voted against electronic transmission of results are the election riggers of Nigeria.
I don't want to say I agree or I don't
yes,
agree.
It may be true. However, how do you change this? And this is the part I need people to hear. It's not by sentiments or shouting. All your associations, put them to work. One, your religion. If I mean, think about it, and I'll just call their name. If Redeemed Church decided
all across
to take up an electrical position, you know how far they would go.
Yes.
Ask me why, for all the noise and size, and I'm just using them as an example here, they're not the only ones, why they don't take such positions. That's one. That's following religion. The Muslims can do the same thing if they wanted. In Lagos, there's a consensus that 4 years for a Christian, another 4 years for
Muslims,
a Christian, 4 years. Yes. So the last person, Ambode, was a Christian. He was a Christian. Before him was Fashola. That's a consensus. Yes. But you can see that they're using their religion to influence, okay? Two, you also have tribe. Zoning, rotation. It started from the north, it goes to the south, etc. This side has had it, it's now our turn. Whether that works, but it's still a form of consensus. You have the social consensus, the elites who disappear at the right time when it's time for elections, and they're nowhere to be seen whenever it's time to make consensus. That's a level. The hungry people, the poor, who you and me do not go to when it's time to create this grassroots connection, but the politicians go there. And that's why when it's time for the numbers, they get the numbers. Now, this is where the problem lies. We don't do the needful at the right time. So when it's time for the results, you get the wrong results. Those that do the work get the results. And I say it once again, politics is not about
numbers and consensus.
No, it's not about what do you call it?
It's not emotional.
It's not about emotional. It's not sentimental. It's not about who has the most money. Politics is about numbers and consensus. Numbers and consensus. If you can build the consensus required to get you the numbers, you'll get the results that you're looking for.
So in other words, automation is still the way forward.
In other words, there are more bad people than there are good. Until the good people start taking active participation in politics. I mean, I'm sure if I ask, you don't have to answer. Which political party are you with?
I'm not in any, actually.
You see,
and that's the big problem.
That's the beginning. Where did you vote last time? who is your House of Rep member at the federal level and at the state level. Go to their houses and block their doors.
Late, no?
Huh?
Oshinowo.
Yes. You said what?
Yes, it was Oshinowo. But I don't know who
is that for your home state or for Lagos State? Yes, for federal. Is that for Lagos?
Yes,
okay. Have you gone to block their house? Because most of us, of course, emails and phone calls will never get through. So you need their attention. And if they don't give it to you, demand it. So instead of blocking, well, let me not say blocking toll gates. Go and block the houses of your House of Rep member. They can't report you. It is sanctionable. It is allowed. Find out who your House of Rep members, who your senator is. Go to his house morning, day, and night until he does your bidding. They're paid in excess to do your bidding. They're fat cats. Wow. They're earning far more. Always bear this in mind. They're not even meant to go on leave while the country is in this issue. Because you and me can't scream, but they scream on our behalf. Well, this is the truth. It's bitter, but it's the reality.
Okay, on that note, we've run out of time. Hey,
Nigeria.
We thought we were coming to talk automation of our electoral processes, so it means that this one is a fact.
This is just the beginning.
Thank you, ladies. We learned today.
Yes, we did.
Let's go and register ourselves in political parties. Have you not been so?
Of course.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dovoe.
Yes,
we're going to bring you back again. We'll steal you some other time. Now, before we go, do ensure you follow us on Instagram. It's at PlusTvAfrica. Follow us now. You can interact with us further, drop a comment, and most importantly, we're planning a huge giveaway to say thank you to you for watching Ways and believing in the brand. So do well to follow us now at PlusTvAfrica. Like, share, comment, and invite your friends and family to follow us as well. Now, in case you missed today's quote, here it is again. Automation is solving the problem once and then putting it on autopilot. But as it is now, they are not ready to solve our problem once, because as simple as real-time transfer of election results is still a debate. God help us. We'll see you tomorrow as we bring another great conversation to your screen. Enjoy.